So, side opposition today have brought up a rather contradictory introduction and a follow-up case, because they tell us that they will deal with why the doctor should personally not be held responsible for vaccinating children. But throughout their constructives and the speech, all we see on the contrary is that they go on to show why vaccination is not good and why it should not be given autonomy to the doctor and should not be encouraged. We tell you this is fundamentally detrimental to a large number of parties, and the doctor is also responsible. I'll be proving these two in my argumentation today. But before that, what will happen in this speech? First, I'll be clearing out some of the misconceptions team opposition has about the status quo and how things work in different countries. But secondly, I'll be going on to constructing why it's important for this motion to pass, to make sure that immunity is generalized. I'm showing to you the correct characterization of doctors in societies and how they are held responsible, and what's important and beneficial for them to make sure that they forcibly go on to immunize children. So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand where this vaccination comes from, and this deals with a large chunk of the first speaker's argumentation. You need to realize that vaccination is not usually funded by private corporations or insurance companies. It's usually funded by the state. How is this funded? We don't ask for additional funds initially, because guess what? The health care facilities the state already allocates a certain portion of its budget for, already accounts for things such as vaccination, and we tell you this automatically includes the expenditure needed to fund vaccination campaigns, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you that this system already exists, and we simply want to make sure that there is no, and we want to make sure that the passage of the vaccination from the state to the children are made through this doctor, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you the ability for pharmaceutical companies to exploit these individuals is quite low, simply because there is not much scope anyway. More importantly, we tell you there will be no problems with this, simply because vaccinations which are given to people for utilization come through several extents by several levels of simulation and approvals. We tell you you need to make sure it is tested over 15 to 20 years before you can essentially apply it on people, simply because you need to account for any allergic reactions that might occur and essentially go on to make sure it does not go on to trigger that reaction. And we tell you that's why it takes time to make sure these work. More importantly, we tell you vaccinations are never approved before they are never used before they are approved by FDA itself, ladies and gentlemen. And we tell you it is completely safe once it has gained that level of approval. Even so, if you consider allergic reactions to be such a big deal, it's still possible for other donors, for the state itself, for other NGOs and other individuals, the World Health Organization, for example, who actively funds encouraging funds provides funds to encourage vaccinations, to go out and fund allergy testing for allergies, right? And we tell you, even if that's the case, we must go out and do it, simply because there is no way around giving vaccination to these poor children who need help. But the case which team opposition essentially takes as general case is anomalous results which have no predictability, and we tell you that exists only in a very rare number of cases, and even so there is no way we can deal with it in the very first place, because other medicine will not work on this individual either. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we tell you the idea of exploiting these individuals doesn't stand for two reasons. First, because you know what, doctors don't get paid for giving out vaccinations, so they don't have an incentive to go out and give it out carelessly. But secondly, we tell you that if the situation is brought up, it's very easy for you to essentially go out and bring them to a lawsuit where they must justify wrong decisions, because if the vaccination is harmful to a child, it's quite clear and can be pointed out, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to the constructives. First, I'll be talking about why exactly there is no way around vaccinations and why the opposition's model will never work. First, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand that things such as the measles outbreak in California and the new strains of polio coming up shows that extremely infectious diseases are essentially reviving themselves and coming up with new mutated strains. This is particularly damaging, and the only way to deal with this, and the best way to deal with it, is by vaccinating children, because in these cases prevention is a lot better than cure, because the cure is not only improbable, it's difficult to carry out and far more expensive in the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you that that's why we don't want any opposition to vaccination. Why is the solution of team opposition absolutely harmful here? We tell you because they tell us because they depend on parents getting more information and making a right judgment call. We tell you information isn't the only factor in giving the parents call, because first we see anti-vaccination campaigns and other sorts of propaganda which go on to show that vaccination is related to a lot of side effects such as autism, which are not even scientifically properly proven, ladies and gentlemen. And we can back this up by saying that if information was the only thing, in the measles outbreak would not occur in California and people would have vaccinated their children. If not that, ladies and gentlemen, the very lack of prevalence of these diseases makes them less important to some parents, so they don't find it important to vaccinate their children. On a secondary level, we tell you some parents, even if they do have information, do not go on to vaccinate their children for religious reasons, because their dogmatic rules essentially restricts them from going on to give vaccinations. We tell you this is discouraged in many other cases as well, because circumcision is important in certain religions, but it is banned until a child can make a rational call and is 18 years old. We tell you in other cases parents are simply lethargic or have philosophical beliefs which contradict the ideas of vaccination and its importance, and in these cases they don't go on to take the decision. We tell you in neither of these cases that is this a rational call, and that it's for the worst, and it is not for the best interest of the child either. And as such, ladies and gentlemen, we restrict their call here, and we make sure that the doctor enforces vaccination onto children. Now, ladies and gentlemen, second idea. What exactly is an actual doctor? We tell you that doctors are not essentially individuals who go out for the money in major cases, like they actually hope to characterize here, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you that these are for two reasons, because one, vaccination doesn't even get them any money, but secondly, any doctor who works only for the purpose of who is only commercial is someone of a terrible mindset and does not deserve to be a doctor to begin with. And we tell you this doesn't exist as much and is absolutely a rare case, because you need to understand, when it comes down to a vital decision which can save a life or take a life, the doctor automatically saves the life and has that sense of justice in himself and has that sense of morality. This is most doctors we talk about. In an emergency situation where life is at stake, they go on to save life and don't consider the commercial aspect of it beforehand, and that's what these doctors are most likely to be doing. Moreover, ladies and gentlemen, we tell you that doctors are the people who themselves are working and dedicate themselves to social welfare since the time they take the Hippocratic oath, where they do go on to show people, go on to promise and vow that they will work for the best interests of society and work for the best interests of mankind as a whole, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you that why is this particularly beneficial to a doctor, and why is this responsibility important for him to fulfill. You need to realize, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, the doctor is the individual who has only one responsibility. It's to cater to the needs of sick people. We tell you when that's the case, the moment this person is unable to save a life, this person will automatically fail his responsibility. This is particularly aggravated in a situation, for example, when he does not vaccinate a child who was there in front of him unvaccinated because of a parent's judgment. But then, ladies and gentlemen, a few years down the line, this child comes back to the hospital, expects to be treated by this doctor to be cured for the absolutely horrendous infectious disease which caught this individual, and is now on the verge of death. We tell you in such a situation, the doctor's mind opens up and he is faced with intense guilt and can no longer return to his practice with full confidence. We tell you it's important for these doctors to retain their confidence, because guilt will absolutely ruin their practice, and it's important to have doctors in society. But more importantly, we tell you because immunity is not dependent on every single individual, but rather a communal entity where everyone in the society is protected by immunity when they are immunized together, and an individual being immunized is not enough, is when, ladies and gentlemen, these doctors hold an active right, because when these parents go on to not give vaccination, they harm the herd immunity which was supposed to exist in society. What is important here is that the doctor must ensure that society as a whole is immunized and is protected from this infectious disease, because guess what? This doctor has vouched for it. He is the social agent and the higher guardian in society and works for the best interest of everyone. We tell you, for the protection of mankind and these children, we must make sure the motion passes.